Today I have an important topic that I wish to share with all of you. And that topic has to do with our understanding of how God has everything under control. And all we have to do is get out of the way. And before I get into that topic, let's just look at the passages that are provided for you today. As I said to you last Sunday, Job has suffered a great mistravesty of justice. He is feeling a sense in which his life has no meaning. He's searched out to understand the whys and wherefores to the temptations that he has gone through, and he comes up with no answer whatsoever. And in his anger, he reaches up to God and demands why. And God turns around and bullies Job by saying to him, then answer these following questions. And as you know, those questions continue throughout chapter 39. Eventually, when we get to chapter 40, Job will realize that God knows far more than he does, and that it's not for him to ask why, but simply to accept what is, which is the hardest thing that all of us could ever do. The other thing that is important in this passage is also that God is very intertwined with the affairs of the world, between human beings, but also through Mother Nature. And God is always intertwining his life deeply with all of us and with every living thing. That is why God has the answers that he has, because God has the ability to see the wider picture that you and I can never really see or know, which always frustrates us because we want to rationalize the misfortune of our life and be able to have an answer. In 1 Corinthians, Paul is writing to a church that is actually a port city, and it has a myriad of different people of different cultures. Even some existing Jews live in the area, and his congregation is made up of a wide variety of different people from all walks of life, from the very rich to the devastatingly very poor. And what he finds is that the congregation is always divided, and what they're divided upon are the teachers that they've had. Some are for Apollos, others are for Paul, some are for Christ, some are for someone else. And Paul has heard about these divisions, and it troubles him. And he tries very hard to say to them, look, it's not the people up front that you should be worried about, but it's the message that you've received. A message which for the Jews is impossible to accept because their Messiah was crucified. He did not come in with his triumphant army and overthrow the Roman power, nor did he take his seat at the temple. At the same time, to the Greeks, it's not a philosophy that makes much sense that somehow you should die to reconcile sin. That makes no sense at all. And so Paul goes to the heart and says that you need to hold on to the message, not to the messenger. It's the message, not the messenger, that's important. And finally, in the Gospel of Luke, a story you're all familiar with, I don't need to go into detail. And the words are poetic, they're lovely, and they're soothing. But for a guy like me who worries every day, they're the hardest words to read. Don't be upset. Don't get yourself all troubled. Jesus says, look at nature. Do they fret? So why should you? And as I pondered that passage more and more, I began to think about something that I never thought about before. And it's this. Nature doesn't worry because it has no sense of itself as an independent being, where we have a sense of our own consciousness. We're a little bit above the animals. We can see our life, both in the past and what we think might happen in the future. But we can never control our life like God. Like the animals, we are subject to the changing environment. Like the animals, we have to struggle. We have to work hard to get ahead. We have to be dedicated in our intelligence and be able to ascertain that which we really need. So how can we not worry? And Jesus says, your Father will look after you. God will give you what you need because he loves you. And that everything that has ever happened to you is not because God has judged you as being wrong or bad or sinful or that because you don't go to church enough, or you don't pray enough. It's because that's life. But he loves you. He truly wants to embrace you. If only but you would let him. And all he can do is hold you as you cry. And he will brush away your tears, but he will also give you the inspiration to hope that tomorrow will be better. All right, God has things in hand. If only but we would get out of the way. And I want to share 3 simple things. And you really should appreciate this sermon. It will be very brief. I promise. Number 1, don't try to take God out of the process of creation. God is creating. He didn't just create, he's creating. Even now, as I speak, a new galaxy is being created. A new set of stars are being born, and planets are revolving around them. The universe continues to expand. It's not contracting. And we know this from the scientific evidence that we have. And God is also working his miracle through people's lives. All kinds of people, in different walks of way of life. God is always there. You see it in the creativity of young little children. You also see it in the creativity of adults as they busy with their jobs and their work and their commitments. And you see people striving and working forever to make something happen out of what little they have. You see intelligence at work. You see people drawing paintings that you've never been able to draw for yourself. You see all kinds of connections that you never stop to think about because you got so busy with your own life. God is constantly looking at the total parameter of human existence, while you and I, we have a small little telescope with a small view to our own little world. Now let me give you a simple case in point of what I'm getting at. There was a recent television program that was talking about the trees that we plant. And the urban forest tends to have male trees. We don't have female trees, we have male trees. And of course, you know why that is. Because female trees produce a flower, usually some kind of a fruit, and then they drop it on the ground and make a mess. Male trees don't. But guess what? People are having problems with their allergies. And why are they having problems with their allergies? It's not because of industrial pollution, although that's part of it. It's because there are no female trees sucking in the male pollen. I have 2 female trees doing all the work that this town doesn't do. And I'm trying desperately to get my allergies under control. Why are we doing that? Because as human beings, we say, well, they're messy. They're messy trees. You know, and every fall, you got to clean up the mess. I mean, why would you want that? I'd rather have a male tree that just drops its leaves. I can deal with that. We're lazy. Not only are we lazy, but we're also, in some cases, especially with the lumber industry, planting specific types of trees that make good lumber to build your furniture in your home. But we're not diversifying the forest. The forest isn't just one type of tree, it's a multiplicity of trees. But we do that because it makes economic sense to take your machinery, go through the area, wipe it down, and then plant the same trees again. It makes our life easier. It's convenient. But you see, God doesn't want your life to be convenient. He wants you to tend to the garden. He wants you to work with what is. We build our cities on floodplains. Why? Why would we do that? And then we build dikes, or we build deep sewers that can take the water somewhere else. Did you know that Buckingham Palace is under a large body of water? You go to the basement. I've seen this on TV, and this is not fake news. And underneath the palace is this reservoir of water. It was a damp, swampish area, and it was Henry VIII who said, I'm going to hunt here. This is my land, and I'm going to hunt here. Because there was lots of deer. Well, they built a palace. It was getting flooded every year, so they found ways to get the water away. But the reality is, especially when it rains, Buckingham Palace still has troubles in the basement with water. Why is it that we can't let life be what it is instead of trying to make it easy for ourselves? That's what I mean by divorcing God from the process. God made everything fine. Why do you got to go and change it? Why must you redesign the world? Can't you accept what the world is? Number 2, and this is important, we all like to have idols. We all like to have leaders who will tell us something that make us realize, yes, that's right, and that's what we need to do. And just like the 1 Corinthians, they love their teachers, but they have forgotten the message of the gospel. They like this person over that person instead of the message that they're both trying to convey. You don't need to have a leader. You need to be able to lead with yourself. And instead of looking at the leader to be your example, you need to be the example yourself. And you need to get rid of your idolatry because you're getting in the way of God's great plan, which is that he uses me and he uses others. Long after me, there'll be many more. I'll only be one of many. But it's the same message, and it never changes. Oh, it has a nuance. It has an accented bent in view. That's fine. That's called individuality. It's the creativeness of us. But the reality is the message is the same. And every time you throw an idol in your face, and I'll give you a classic case in point. Boris Johnson's favorite idol is Winston Churchill. And he's trying to be as stubborn as Winston Churchill, not realizing that Churchill had different circumstances he was dealing with. His country was at war. Boris Johnson doesn't have a war. He has a conflict of the national crisis of identity. What does it mean to be a British in the UK? Sorry, in the European Union. That's his crisis. His crisis is, how do we manage this exit so that we can get the best benefit? But Boris Johnson is trying to imitate Churchill in the wrong time and in the wrong venue. He's held him up as an idol to imitate. We don't need idols. You need yourself, and you need to do what you think can make a difference in the world. That's how God's hand takes care of things. And finally, you know this very well, the serenity prayer. And it blends well with our gospel reading. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. But here's the last part that we never say. Accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as he did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. We want the world the way we want it. And the reason we run into a crisis, the reason why we stand and hold God back, is because we think we know more than God does. And we don't want to suffer. We don't want hardship because it causes us anxiety. But the reality is that hardship leads to peace, because the harder you work at whatever it is you're working on, the greater the reward will be when you get there and you realize that you've survived. And it will be a peace that will pass all understanding. And if you accept this world as it is, as sinful as it is, and take it as it is, rather than trying to change it and mold it to your agenda, the happier you will be. To be here is not to leave your imprint. You will die as I will die. You're not going to leave an imprint except with those who love you, who have always known you, or those you've helped through life. And when they're gone, they're going to forget about you. We're just dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. Know that song? All we are is dust in the wind. And the more we learn that, the better God can take care of things.